Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm hoping you guys are all having a fantastic day. So in today's video, as you can tell by the title, we'll be talking about a large and dangerous winter storm that will be occurring really not that far out. I mean, it's already occurring across the Southwest. It's gonna probably peak and reach its most dangerous aspect on Wednesday and into Thursday. Now I say dangerous, not necessarily because of the snow or the ice. While that is going to be concerning, the main threat with this one is the severe weather. Not only is it going to have potent severe weather across the south, it's going to have a large area of moderately potent severe weather. It's not going to be a massive outbreak, but it could stretch well into the Ohio area, Indiana, Kentucky, all the way into the south. So a massive stretch of storms that could be producing wind, or maybe tornadoes, hail. An enhanced risk will most definitely be issued. And again, a lot of population getting impacted by that. Obviously, snow and sleet coming as well, and really abrupt temperature changes coming for a majority of the United States. And this doesn't necessarily lean in one or either direction. Into the coming week, it looks as if there will be temperature fluctuations like we haven't seen in a while. Going from 50s, 60s in one area to potentially below even zero in a matter of a few days. So really some incredible weather going on here. A very volatile pattern. Usually doesn't spell good for springtime weather. Obviously, severe weather, storms, ice, they get supercharged. So, while some folks may say that this winter has been rather measly for some, and I can't really disagree with that. It hasn't been awfully snowy for many. It's still middle of February, and March and April could still pack a punch for many locations, and we are getting some early indications of that. So let me just get started about this without further ado, because I have been talking for a little bit now. So I do want to say before I start this video, I divide these videos into regions. So skip to your region to see to see how your region will be impacted by the storm. I will start off with the Northwest. Use a scroll bar or the description box below to do so. Let's start off with the Northwest, and right now if you look at the radar, it's mainly quiet, right? So the GFS right now shows, let's go back here, a lot more activity, and the reason for this is because this is a MSLP average precipitation rate. So this is what fell in the past 6 hours. Currently, as I'm recording this, much of this has abated, left us with some chilly air. Some areas still picking up some light to moderate snow, really nothing incredible here. And obviously do note that there are some advisories and warning areas still. So let's go back to the Northwest here and click on the radar rain / frozen. This will do a better representation. You can see the model a little over exaggerating with some of that. Notice though, as you spill into the overnight hours, it quickly winds down. Much of the Northwest and Southwestern Canada not seeing much, excluding British Columbia, where there could be another system rolling in, bringing some heavy snow for the coastal areas and some rain elsewhere where the temperatures are warmer. Notice this doesn't really affect the Northwest too much. It kind of peters out before it hits them. So if you're watching from Washington, Oregon, you may expect a few showers on Thursday, nothing too significant. A little wave disturbance potentially, a little cold front maybe into Montana, northern areas here, the southern areas of Alberta and Saskatchewan, maybe on Friday. Overall, though, the Northwest, this system isn't going to impact you, or, I mean, it did already impact you, but it's not going to really impact you in any additional ways. And the long-range pattern does look active. Through this weekend, calm, right, but that's more of a short-term pattern. Long-term, I mean, into next week, you can see more disturbances coming through. Maybe none of them extremely large, but you can see there's plenty of cold air, so they will have no problem accumulating, dropping good amounts of snow for the high elevations. And then potentially in the future, you can see we have a colossal system coming in here. I mean, look at the millibars, 9.8 and 9.80. That's very strong winds. Obviously, a lot more potency with this one. And this seems like we could be looking at a lot of these in the future. As you can see, I just run this through. Don't need to necessarily pay attention to the individual dates, but you can see it stays active, especially maybe as we get into March. A hyperactive pattern really kicks in. So for now, nothing too incredible, at least through this weekend across my Northwest, the Northwestern folks here. Let's move into the Southwestern United States. This is where we get a lot more interesting. So right now, if you look at the radar, we do have some snow that is still occurring across California, Nevada. A lot of this has already fallen, the brunt of what would have been this winter storm's impacts for you. Do note that there obviously are still some snow showers. You can see Las Vegas even got really close to seeing some snow there. In fact, I think it did, right? If this radar is showing this properly. And what this shows, the testament is just how chilly it is across the Southwest, and that's going to be the main story here for you folks. Do note that obviously the snow will continue into the overnight hours today, especially across Utah, New Mexico, Arizona, Colorado. You can see some of this will be heavy as this thing intensifies, especially into the front range of the Colorado area and into New Mexico. So according to the GFS, total accumulated precipitation, you can see again centered here, and that will be mainly falling in the form of snow. Some areas picking up a lot of snow that may not look too impressive on the radar, but you can see that all these winter weather advisories and warnings are covering these areas because, well, quite frankly, there's going to be a lot of snow. And if you read some of these, you can see 6 to 14 inches. That's quite a bit. And in the higher elevations, you can see easily, 1 to 2 feet. Denver, you're under winter weather advisory still, 4 to 8 potentially, which is still quite a bit. Pueblo right there, 5 to 15 with wind gusts up to 75 miles per hour on the west-facing slope. So obviously very, very difficult conditions for travel if you encounter that. But notice Santa Fe, Albuquerque, areas that, may or may not usually see snow within a given winter storm, especially with the warmer winter. You guys will be seeing snow here, and quite a bit of it, frankly. Notice right now it is snowing across Flagstaff. It has been snowing there for a while. Some of those snowfall rates are very impressive, so I assume there's already quite a bit of snow that's fallen there. And this is going to move out of here by the time tomorrow, afternoon rolls around. So that's good news for you folks, right? This thing is pretty much imminent. It's going on right now, and it should be over relatively soon. Let's move on to the HER model. This is a more high-res model, and you can see this is what it showed at 1 p.m., 2 p.m. So this is already what occurred, and you can see that's why, again, we are already seeing some pretty nice snowfall amounts there, as this has been going on for a while. Notice now into the future, 8, 9, 10, 11 p.m. This is Central Standard Time, so subtract an hour or two depending on what time zone here. I believe this is a mountain time zone, so it's just 1 hour. But do note Arizona, right? Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, really seeing that snow through the overnight hours. Moving out of Flagstaff, Las Vegas, all those impacts are going to be gone from your areas in whatever form they came in by the morning hours tomorrow. But notice New Mexico really getting on this now, and into Colorado, really starting to pick up on that snow. This includes areas that are pretty far away from the mountains. The Oklahoma Panhandle, Texas Panhandle picking up some snow potentially. And you can see this continues to 2, 3, 4 p.m. So, again, most of the areas will be done by tomorrow afternoon. And then by tomorrow evening, especially late evening, it seems all of the areas will be done. Total snowfall, this is a little still too high here because a lot of the snow has fallen, but over here the brunt of this hasn't fallen yet, so some decent amounts of snow are coming into the long range. If you take a glance at your guys' forecast, it looks active. Maybe through the weekend a little bit of a period of calmer weather and maybe some warming temperatures, but to notice there's various disturbances that try infiltrating here, potentially especially across Colorado and Utah. But as we get into the mid part of next week, there's some bigger, larger disturbances, a lot of snow again. There's plenty of cold air. So snow is going to be plentiful, and you can see that we have these large storms moving in, potentially becoming uncomfortably active yet again for the California area into the long range, which would obviously be good for the long-term drought. I mean, goodness, no one, there's no one that called for such a active weather period as for the Southwest like we've been seeing, especially given the fact it's a La Nina year, and that's just sometimes how it is, guys. So, that's definitely good news overall. This will definitely benefit areas, but some of these amounts here are probably bringing back some PTSD for some folks, and there's still some areas that are struggling with, enhanced groundwater and whatnot that hasn't had time to really settle down to the fullest, but there will be more rain here. Okay, let's move on now into the north central United States, as this is an area where we really are going to be seeing some various impacts from these systems. Obviously, we do have one going on right now. I didn't really talk about it across the Northwest and Southwest, well, because it's already across the Midwest. It's left those areas. Here is what it looks like on a radar. A very complex system. I would say there's a lot of moving pieces, but overall, nothing too insane. You can see the rain is falling pretty heavily and very far towards the north. Again, a testament of how warm it is. We are starting to see some of that rain convert into snow across the backside of here, and the winds pick up. That's right, there will be some blizzard conditions. Notice Bismarck, you're seeing this band of snow, very slow moving band of snow moving through. You're obviously causing some your travel impacts. And look how far stretching this band is. Pretty impressive, all the way into Winnipeg there. Just south of it. It's not too much snow falling for you guys there, but there was a few brief hours of heavier snow. And you can see that there's even some, potent more storms to the south here. But again, this isn't really what we're concerned about. I'll show you how this plays out. You can see the GFS showing most of this moving away by the time we get into the morning hours tomorrow, and during the day, it's pretty much gone, right? And we do see cooler temperatures riding in behind that. Total snowfall just through that that time frame. You can see nothing too significant. Again, it's more of the combination of the winds are going to be fierce that triggered those those blizzard warnings across the north there. And you can see the next 9 hours with the most latest HER model, you can see that more of that conversion does take place. And there could be some pretty heavy rates, especially with the initial onset of that snowfall. But as the system begins to weaken, some of that becomes a little weaker. Notice some potential nasty little thunderstorm-like showers. I think this is overdone by the HER model, but notice that could be across Illinois and Wisconsin. But regardless, again, this thing's done and out of here by, if you look at the older model run here, it's out of here by 6-7 a.m. when the sun is rising for the most part. Maybe a little additional showers for southern Canada here in the northern U.S. But as you see, we have a new one coming in, and this is the one that we're really concerned about, because this one has a lot more strength, a lot more power to it, and a lot more impacts that are going to be impactful. So notice it obviously already begins across Kansas, Nebraska, Colorado into the day tomorrow. So yes, it's right on the heels of this one. Notice there's colder that's infiltrating from the north behind this one, so a lot more areas are going to be seeing snow from this one as opposed to this one, where there's folks here way in northern Wisconsin seeing rain, and it's looking like if it's late March, maybe even a warm spell in early April. I mean, something incredible. Not unheard of though in April, especially in the more recent years. We've been seeing some of those storms do that type of stuff. But do note that as this thing spreads through the day tomorrow, by evening hours into the overnight, it does spread into Kansas City, just north of you. Again, this is still a little uncertain where this line of heavy snow will move and where exactly will fall, but this HER model does a pretty good job of showing that. Notice at first it's almost completely disconnected from the warm sector of the storm, but because there's so much atmospheric conditions playing into this, it's not really moisture starved. It's the moisture is pumping into it, except there's not immediate rain on the underside of it. But yeah, you could really see some heavy snowfall rates wherever the snow clips. There will be heavy snow. You can see Des Moines, Iowa, and the northern periphery, the Quad Cities there, central Illinois, potentially a little bit of ice, rain mixing in. And notice that because of these warm temperatures, still on the southern side of this, an abundancy of, again, potentially severe weather, very strong showers. And you can see that this low pressure, as it moves into potentially as it moves into Indiana and away from central Illinois, it brings heavy snow into Chicago, maybe Milwaukee, Madison, Green Bay, just south of Green Bay potentially. And again, if you're watching this from the northern Illinois area, northwestern Indiana, I know I have a lot of folks viewing from that, relatively speaking. I'm also from that area, so maybe that is why. But obviously this is a very tough scenario because the southern section of of Chicago may not necessarily see a lot of snow. But if this does continue shifting towards the south, as we have been seeing with the high res models, we may pick up a little bit more snow across Illinois than anticipated. But at this point, I would say, it's fair to say northern Illinois, southern Wisconsin, eastern Iowa, this thing, you can see that the snowfall amounts will be the snowfall rates will be heavy. 1 to 2 inches, maybe not 2, but 1 inch of snow per hour. So 6 inches, 7 inches of snow is possible across northern Illinois. Again, that could stretch further south. And do note that this thing continues into Michigan into the daytime hours on Thursday. And yes, this will most likely be beginning early in the day on Thursday for a lot of the big metros here along the lake. But you can see into Iowa, it's already well underway into the overnight hours. And again, exactly how this unfolds is a bit uncertain. But I also want to bring attention to the folks towards the north. Notice you guys won't be seeing much precipitation, but you guys will be dealing with quite a bit of cold air. That's something I wanted to point out. And again, you may think the severe weather across the Ohio Valley, Kentucky area, where you may be watching from this area here, you may be thinking, oh, this is it. No, these will have torrential downpours, maybe some severe weather aspects. The main severe weather really starts picking up is on once this low pressure reaches into Indiana and northwestern Ohio, we start seeing some of these supercell potentially develop. I wouldn't say supercells, but really strong storms for February standards. There are some unsettling signs if you look at the soundings of some of these models, indicating that there is definitely the potential for a significant severe weather outbreak here. Notice the model runs out of time here, but this is where we start potentially looking for those nasty storms. So it will be kind of a two-punch way for a lot of these areas, exactly depending on where this unfolds. So you can see there's still a lot of uncertainty here. But if we take a look at a model like the NAM12 or NAM3KM, this one shows an even more southern scenario. I don't realistically think the system will go this far to the south, though the NAM3KM has been trending further and further south each model run. So maybe it's a trend that's a little too aggressive, but it's still nonetheless true. We'll have to see. But notice it does develop this cold front, obviously a little bit further east because of the southern track it portrays. But notice some of these storms really become intense, and and this would again be affecting a lot of the areas here across Kentucky, Tennessee, West Virginia, Pennsylvania into the latter half of the day on Thursday. And do note that there will be some cooler air moving in. So let's take a look at some of the snowfall amounts that the National Weather Service has issued. Actually, no. First off, let's look at the Storm Prediction Center. I wanted to show you the severe weather first. So notice tomorrow, again, it's mainly across the south central, so not affecting the north central U.S. state, or at least not into tomorrow. But notice on the day Thursday, this really stretches, again, well into Canada, which is kind of unprecedented for February. It's a slight risk. It's massive. I mean, the population is 31 million people, and, Indianapolis, Columbus, Nashville, Cleveland, Lexington, Louisville. I mean, there's a lot of cities in here, and this could still get expanded and maybe an enhanced somewhere in here. Incredible potential setup here, and you can see that this is what they're showing as of now. So that is definitely something we're concerned about. And let me show you what the European model shows, a global model. So there's that system. You can see wherever it lines up, you can see the European has a more northern track. There's that first wave of the storms, and then there's that second one with that cold front. You may not show it as well as, obviously the high resolution models, but there it is. And you can see that it stays quick. And not necessarily strong, but there's a lot of things pressing into it that are obviously providing either cold air, the dry line, and obviously the extreme buoyant warm air mass on the south side of this thing. So the snowfall accumulations could be heavy, obviously, where areas where that snow falls without impeding from warmer temperatures. So the NAM 12 3km, probably one of the more southern scenarios, shows a snowfall outlook, and the NAM 12 km along with it. That's really far towards the south. I don't really think it will be this far towards the south, but if you look at a model like the Canadian from the noontime hours, you could see it showed it more into northern Illinois and Michigan than even the latest GFS, which keeps it more further towards the north. Again, we'll still have to wait and see. Regardless, though, it looks like a pretty nasty event for the areas that do get impacted. Stay tuned to your local National Weather Service for details on that. Let's begin now addressing the south central United States, as this is another area that will be definitely impacted by some, well, let's just put it frankly, severe weather and maybe some snow, depending on where you live across the south central United States. So let's go back to the HERB model here. I'm doing a lot of jumping around here. I apologize, but let's go to the 18Z model run and try timing some of this out for you. So again, this first system, that thing's pretty much gone for you guys. Maybe some additional storms and showers across Missouri, northern Missouri, and Kansas, but the main area of focus switches here back towards the south and west, where we see some of this snowfall spreading into Kansas, the panhandle of Oklahoma, maybe Texas as well, extreme northern Texas there, by the early morning hours tomorrow. Notice through the day, cities like Goodland, Kansas, Dodge City, North Platte, just getting on the northern side of that, Omaha, Lincoln, some pretty nasty snowfall accumulation is going to be occurring here. This thing may look, it's odd. I mean, it's just like a floating storm mass, and there's almost no southern support to this, but it does. You can see the winds are pumping in a lot of moisture, so these snowfall rates will undoubtedly be heavy. And notice that this thing finally starts kicking off some nasty storms by late tomorrow evening, 9, 10, 11 p.m. into Oklahoma, Arkansas, and some showers, which will definitely have some torrential downpours out ahead of this. And as this thing intensifies, you can see that this cold front that it's dragging along with it is really where the most potent severe weather threat begins. And you can see for the south central here, U.S., maybe, Oklahoma, Texas, you guys don't really see much in terms of the severe weather, especially the western areas. There will be a little concern right here on the day Wednesday into Oklahoma, Arkansas, Texas, but this thing really starts strengthening around the more early to mid-morning hours on Thursday, and you can see that this is where that severe weather threat and concern lies. This runs out at hour 48, but if you take a look at a model like the NAM 3KM, you can see there's that cold front. It looks pretty well put together. NAM 3KM does show just a little straight line. It often does that, underrepresents it. But you can see it strengthens as it pulls into Georgia, Mississippi, Louisiana, Tennessee. So this is definitely going to cause some concerns into the day on Thursday. And if you look at a model like the FV3 high res, don't really like showing this one too much because it usually over-exaggerates some of these storm cells. But you can see it definitely shows the kind of the nature of this thing, especially towards the south here. Will be slow moving, so there could be a lot of thunderstorm activity towards Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama. Obviously, the rainfall amounts will be heavy wherever this does occur. The models usually have a hard time predicting that, so it's kind of fruitless looking at that. And in the long range for the Southwest here, behind this system, which the GFS, you can see there it is. It shows that severe weather. It's quick. You can see, though, a lot of cool air moves in, but it's brief. And on into the weekend, things are warming back up, and that's what I was saying at the beginning of the video. Volatile weather pattern. These temperatures are going to go from being warm to potentially cooler than average, potentially well cooler than average, depending on the snow or storm tracks. So something we'll have to keep in mind here. You can see the activity is nothing. There's nothing. Yeah, there's no shortage of activity. Let's move on to the Northeast, as this is an area where, well, we do not see necessarily a lot of snow, but more potentially severe weather, which seems odd in February, but it's definitely a concern. Notice the first one really peters out. That's what we've been saying for a while. Doesn't do much. So let's start focusing on the second one. Notice already we see a lot of these heavy showers, heavy rain moving in. This will be in the form of these isolated showers and storms that will be bringing a lot of rainfall out ahead of it, out ahead of the main front, which is where the actual severe weather lies. Depending on exact track, again, the models are struggling a bit. The high resolutions are a little bit further south compared to the global ones. I'm leaning towards a high res because if you look at the previous storm that we had, previous past few storms, usually the global models struggle with the track a little bit more than the high res. It's not always the case, but this time around it does seem to be the trend. And do note, this is where that cold front really starts picking up into the day on Thursday. Now, the GFS here doesn't do the greatest job of portraying this, but you can see these little bands of darker green. That's basically this model trying to show you that there will be isolated to strong storms here, producing downpours. And you can see that on the northern side of this, if you live across Toronto, the cities across Canada, Ottawa, Ontario, all of these areas along the St. Lawrence River Valley, you will be seeing some ice, rain, snow, potentially, especially in the backside of this. You can see the cold air is quick, so try catching this cold front and transitioning some of that into snow. Shouldn't be too significant, as the system itself is also quick. And you can see that the severe weather aspect kind of dwindles as you push towards the east. But you can see some significant rainfall amounts may occur. And again, the global models, I don't really like showing them that much because they usually do a pretty crappy job of showing the rainfall amounts from a severe weather event. The European a bit better. You can see there's that initial burst of the heavier rain. It will peter out as it moves towards the north. But there's that concerning severe weather setup into Ohio, Kentucky, Tennessee, West Virginia into the day on Thursday and into Friday. And you can see once it reaches the Northeast, still some nasty storms potentially, but more of a heavier rain threat as opposed to anything else. And total snowfall according to the European model. So let's take a glance at this. You can see this is what it shows. So Quebec, you guys could still pick up quite a bit of snow. Further south, though, Toronto, not much, more of a rain-snow mix. Again, this is assuming a more northern scenario. Some of the models, like the RAP, have been showing and consistently showing at a more southern scenario. You can see more of Illinois there, Michigan getting impacted. So this would also result in heavier snow for southeastern Canada. But for now, the Northeast isn't necessarily the most extreme area of this storm. It seems for that to be the North Central, where we have heavy snow and the greater severe weather threat. Again, it doesn't really reach the Northeast there. It's mainly to Iowa, Indiana, and Kentucky. Let's take a glance now into the southeastern United States, the last region that will be impacted by this system, or the last region I have to talk about that will be impacted by this system. First one, again, it's across the radar, ongoing right now. Some scattered thunderstorms. Really more of thunder showers. Nothing too impressive. This thing peters out. Not much of a concern. But the cold front behind this thing, you can see, can linger and actually start sucked up by the second one, and you can see that can deliver some showers and storms again into the day on Wednesday, but especially on Thursday is where that severe weather threat is our concern. And you can see we have some of these showers obviously being very heavy storms, severe weather, potentially really peaking into the overnight hours into Friday across northern Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, North Carolina, and maybe some snow into the Appalachians of West Virginia, Charleston, picking up a little bit of snow as that transitions. But predominantly you can see Florida not seeing much. It's going to be centered here towards kind of the central area of the southeast. Let me show you a different model's perspective. I'm trying to find the best model I could show you. Yeah, I guess the NAM 12 game will probably be the best one. So again, there will be some showers and storms that lift off of this on Wednesday into the early morning hours of Thursday. That's not necessarily the severe weather threat. The severe weather threat really starts developing into the later half of Thursday. You can see as this thing initially is more slanted, and it becomes more vertical and positively tilted as we see this move into the late afternoon, evening hours on Thursday, and we see some nasty storms again develop along this line. This may not look really much like anything, but telling you, when you get impacted by this, if you live in Atlanta, if you live in Birmingham, you will feel the brunt of these storms. And again, you can see it kind of peters out as it moves towards the southeast there. So total rainfall shouldn't be too much of a drastic rain producer. Obviously, certain areas, especially across the hilly areas here where the NAM 12 game targets, could be concerning, hills and potentially some heavier rain. And again, usually models with pretty bad job of predicting rainfall amounts from a storm like this. So don't get too caught up on this. It may be heavier or lighter in a track change. So that is definitely something we'll have to watch for. Let me just again show you the system over the entire United States. As we now, I kind of want to show you the long range as well. And do note that as I put this forward here, look at that. Initially, again, completely separated. The cold side, the snow side there across Kansas and Nebraska, and the warm side, the green area, but eventually they do merge. You can see the snow very heavy. It's brief, but it's very heavy. And further south, again, a severe weather threat, also pretty potent and nasty. And then we see a little blast of cooler air, potentially again a warming trend as a strong high pressure sets up across the southeast, pumping more warm air. And maybe a little bit of a break in the pattern in terms of extreme activity. Some clippers from the north affecting the northern areas here, but do note that potentially into next week we could be seeing some sort of a multiple systems trying to brew, one maybe across the northeast, one further here. And there's been a few days now of these models showing a potential really strong system moving it off the northwestern United States and into the northern states here, or sorry, the central U.S. here. And you can see that there could be multiple components. This thing is obviously concerning. Could have tons of heavy snow, severe weather. Yeah, it looks like a very moisture rich pattern. I mean, look at this, just activity from coast to coast. The west really getting slammed by precipitation again, which isn't necessarily the best thing for California. Maybe they would willing to take some rain, maybe just not what we saw, the same thing what we saw in January. Here's the earlier model run of the GFS again. You can see, I just want to show you this, that they've been showing this larger system for a while now. Definitely something we'll have to watch for. And an overall active pattern. Again, you can see a classic storm that takes kind of shape in a more zonal flow, but there will be a lot of cold air here from the north fighting with very warm air here from the south, which could drive some of these intense systems. And yeah, definitely nothing short of active pattern. If you look at the European model, which in the long range is obviously it doesn't go out as far as the GFS. It goes out to 240 hours, which the GFS goes out 300 plus. But you can see it shows that first one. Obviously, we're concerned about now. But in the long range, it shows systems as well. Potentially, again, that little funky northeast system. Maybe more systems across the Central U.S. trying to do some sort of emerging. And then potentially that really big one further on in the forecast period. So we'll have to wait and see. A lot of activity. Nothing shortage of that. Alright, so that's basically it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next episode. See ya. Bye.